It's really fun for me to be here at the ATHE conference because I think it's hard to find American theater professionals today for whom their college years were not a formative experience. I mean, so many of us really found our voices and decided what we wanted to do and that we wanted to make theater our lives in college. And so to be part of a conference like this and to be, to be recognized is really wonderful because this is the kind of environment that shaped me and everybody else, I think, who works in the American theater today. I actually believe we will look back on this period and feel that this was sort of a golden age of American playwriting. I think there's a fantastic amount of excellent work being done today by a wide range of writers, diverse in terms of age, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of content and style. So I actually think there's a lot of good writing. It is harder, I think, for younger playwrights to break in than it was when I got started, because there was a period, say in the 80s and from sort of the 60s to the 80s when the field was expanding. And then starting in the 90s, the field started to contract somewhat. And I feel like there are maybe not as many even new production opportunities for plays as there was, say, 20 years ago. But there's still, sort of the baby boomer playwrights like me are still kind of taking up slots. So I feel like it's hard for younger playwrights to get started now. What's tricky right now is we still kind of, and this has been true since the mid-90s, we still, to some extent, live in a reading culture in the American theater. That is, there are a fair number of opportunities for young writers actually to have readings of their plays done, and not so many opportunities to have productions. So I think that you learn a certain amount, certainly by hearing your play read, but you don't really learn everything about your play, and you don't know how to fix everything about your play until you're in an actual production situation. And I think that means that young writers need to find ways to have their work produced, even if it's not in major venues, even if you have to self-produce. What 13P has done, I think, has been a really good model, but to get these plays up on their feet so that they're not just hearing them read with actors in music stands. Where it comes to Asian American writing, again, I feel like there's a fantastic amount of work being done by writers under 40. I think of Lloyd Suh or Sung No or Young Jin or Julia Cho, or there's just a wonderful work being done. I think what's tricky right now is for Asian American writers to sort of sort out what's the next step in this sort of theater movement, if you will, that started, I think, with a generation of writers before me, with the sort of Frank Chin's, Wakako Yamauchi, Momoko Iko, people like that, and then to my generation that was, sort of me and Philip Gotanda and Valina Houston, and then, then you had a sort of generation that was dealing with where the ethnicity was no longer the subject matter. It was not central to the theme of the play. The characters were, the Asian characters in some of these plays were, certainly they were aware that they were Asian, and that was one aspect of their identity, but that didn't define their whole character. So what's the next step from that? And I think, the sort of work that Young Jin Lee does, for instance, I think is really interesting because she is aware of her ethnicity, and she's done at least one work that's very explicitly about that. But a lot of the work isn't, and yet it doesn't seem like she's denying it at the same time. So that's, I think, a really interesting path in terms of what does it mean in this new age of sort of hybridity and with a lot of mixed race people in our community, and where the Asian American community itself is much more diverse and grows increasingly so. What does that mean for the next generation of Asian American writing?